got a 2004 Dodge Durango 5.7 liter, and it's got a leaking rear pinion seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the orientation of the universal joint with this plate so I maintain the correct balance. So this will be marked to this, and I'll mark it to there. So I know that these have to be lined up. I'll take off these 4 bolts. There's 4 of them right here. I'll drop down the drive shaft. Then that'll leave me with this outer flange. I'll take off the center nut, and then I'll use my puller to pull this out. And that should give me access directly to the seal. And hopefully the auto parts store is going to have the right seal. All right, let's see how it goes. Drive shaft is off. I marked the orientation of the flange plate, and I also marked the orientation of the other end of the U-joint, but I don't think it's important. Those are the 4 bolts. Now I've got to get this off. It looks like it's a 32 millimeter. I measured the distance of how deep the nut is set. It's about 3.5 millimeters, but also I think these markings, the orange and the purple, indicate about 110 foot-pounds of torque. But nevertheless, it's always good to double check. All right, now I'm gonna get my impact and take this thing off. All right, so I got the nut off, no problem. And there it is. There's also a washer in here as well. It's gonna come off, come out. Okay, so now I've got the puller on there, and I'm going to pull it off. All right, that actually came off very easily. Very easily. Now there's the seal. I'm going to take that seal with me to the auto parts store so I get the correct seal. Here's the part, flange, and we'll go to auto parts store. Just a little word of caution. Getting this seal off, you've got to go from the outside. See how the outer lip, that's what I've got to peel off. I started trying to peel it from the inside. Obviously I spent a little extra time doing that, but that wasn't necessary. The whole thing comes off from the outside, right there. So here it is. It's a bit chewed up, but obviously this inner coil, but it's going to sit something like this. So it's out now. I'll clean everything up, but then this just sits, it goes over it like that, and it's got that inner rubber seal. We'll take it to the auto parts store, we'll get the correct one. So a word of advice, always bring the old seal with you when you go to the auto parts store. Here's the new seal. They had trouble finding it. The ones I cross-referenced were not the right fit, and then I got my cell phone and I found it through AutoZone and then showed him and he found the right part. So always bring the old seal with you and match it up. So I just jacked up the back of the car so I could drain out more of the oil, so when I put it back flat again, I can get it nice and dry. And as always, it is the wrong seal. The outer diameters fit, but the inner diameters are not the same. And yet, the inner diameters have a different pitch. All right, back to AutoZone the next day, and I got the correct seal. I brought my digital caliper with me to make sure all the dimensions are correct, and this one should do it. All right, so this one looks like it's gonna fit nicely. I'm gonna put some gasket maker around it to get a better seal. Well, that looks pretty good. Okay, that is sealed on there all the way around. I just double checked. So now, when I put the pinion nut on, because that's yellow and purple, maybe it was blue, the book calls for 210 foot-pounds of torque. I assume that's what those colors mean because those are the same, but I'll put the parking brake on and I'll use my torque wrench and I'll make sure we get to 210 or thereabouts. I'm also going to fill the differential. Well, that was stupid. You can't add gear oil until you've torqued down the flange. So, start over again. And so, smacked it on. I made sure that my orientation was correct like I had it before, with my marks right here. And then we'll get that nut on there. So I have to measure is 3.5 millimeters of thread showing. So I'm going to torque it and then I'll make sure I count to 3.5 millimeters, or I measure 3.5 millimeters. Alright, I'm trying to do this one-handed, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'm 3.18, so we gotta hit it for more. I'm going to use my first brake and then I'll torque it. We're reading 3.6, so I think we're there. I'll double check it with the torque. I've set my torque wrench to 210. We'll go from there. I had to put the truck on the ground to get the torque because the parking brake wouldn't hold it. Okay, I filled it and so far nothing's leaking. We'll see. So now I've got to reinstall the 4 flange bolts, making sure to keep the correct orientation. I mark that white with that white for the balance, and then I'll torque them to about 80. So far it feels pretty good. Doesn't mean I have any confidence though. No, that's pretty dry. I don't see any gear oil coming off of that thing. Alright. So, the seal was $9. 2 quarts of gear oil for $6 each. With tax, it was about 23 bucks. But I had $20 in rewards points. So the total cost was $3. And if it wasn't for me driving back and forth to the auto parts store to get the correct seal, total time for the job, about an hour and a half. Again, because I was just taking my time and making sure I did it right.